coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What is going on, people? You already know what time it is. You can see it on the screen. We are back with another summer realistic transfer target show. Guys, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Obviously, just a segment where I talk about the players that I would like the club to take a look at. Players I think could do a job for Liverpool for now and in the future. So obviously we've spoken about Gonzalo Ignacio, we've spoken about Dominic Szoboszlai from RB Leipzig, and today I wanted to take a look at a player that I've liked for a very, very, very long time, and that is Eze from Crystal Palace. Now, Eze obviously just recently got called up to the England national squad. Hopefully he will make his debut by the time that this video is posted out. Hopefully by then he's either in the squad or in the team, should I say. And I think he should be. I think he should. Whether or not he does is another question, but I think he should be making his debut for England. Eze. Now, he's a different option. Now, obviously, with Liverpool looking at potentially trying to get in some more homegrown players, that was one of the main reasons as to why I decided to pick someone like Eze. I followed him since his time at QPR. Felt like when he was at QPR, he was above and beyond in that league, to be honest with you, playing for them, the Championship. Very, very good player. But then obviously that's the Championship. So could he make the step up? And he moved to Crystal Palace. And, when you move to Crystal Palace, obviously it's a step up to, the Championship, or from the Championship, should I say. But at the same time, when you're moving into the Premier League, especially with a team like Crystal Palace, a team that's not, at the top echelons, of the Premier League and stuff like that. But at the same time, being able to play in the Premier League, show us what you can do. That's all I guess anyone could realistically ask from you is, do you look at someone like an Eze and say, oh, he's at least a Premier League level player? 100%. And he's better than most, I feel, anyway, in his position. Now, a bit, like I said, it's a bit of a left wing kind of player in terms of, not in terms of his actual position, but just in terms of one profile, but also not a name that many people are going to be like, oh, yeah, we should get him in. Again, I'm trying to look at it from a perspective of, is it realistic that we would go for him or should go for him? And I think, yeah, why not, to be honest with you? He possesses qualities that I feel that Liverpool need in the squad. He's also a player I feel, obviously we talk about the project kind of players. He falls for me in that kind of bracket of, he's still obviously a project player. Of course, he hasn't played at the top level in terms of, European or even for England, obviously at the time of this video. And at the same time, he's been playing for Crystal Palace, a team that's obviously been down in the dumps, in the last couple of seasons, trying to fight off relegation. Obviously been a lot more safer this season with Roy Hodgson. Since Roy Hodgson came in, Eze for me has been their best player. Goals and assists. This guy kind of has it all in his locker. And I think, as I said, his work on and off the ball, the fact that even when he's on the ball, he's a bit of a technician, good technique, dribbling ability, can find a pass, likes to play in that pockets of space, but also when he is in that central midfield or midfield kind of position, he has got that kind of aggressiveness, the work rate off the ball to be able to function in there. And I think that's why I look at someone like Eze and I think to myself, again, transfer market have got his valuation at about 30 million euros. What he would actually cost is obviously another thing, hence the reason why I say it then just comes down to if it's something that's feasible. And again, I'm looking at homegrown players. There's not many out there that I really, me personally, that I really rate, so to speak. But he is definitely one of them. And again, like I said, been following him since QPR times. And I think since then, he's been a phenomenal, he's been phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? He's been a phenomenal player. He's he's going through the stages, I feel. And also, if you think about it, he's made the England squad obviously this time, but he was in the preliminary squad for the World Cup, the Qatar World Cup. Then obviously got himself that injury. He was in the Euros preliminary squad as well. So it's not like he's a player that's just kind of come out of nowhere, isn't really doing too much. I feel like there is a lot of respect given on Eze, and this is his youth career. Played for Arsenal, Fulham, Reading, Millwall. Obviously in his time in the youth sides, didn't really make it there. Obviously, then moved on to QPR. That's where obviously he's made his name, etc., etc. All the boring stuff, all the stuff that we already kind of know about him. And then when you take a look at him, obviously this is for Crystal Palace, these are all the kind of positions and stuff that he's obviously played: left midfield, central midfield, attacking midfield, left winger, right midfield. Again, it's the versatility that I like in a player like that. This is his kind of overall attacking midfield, obviously being the position that he plays mostly. Left midfield as well, again, another position that he can occupy. Obviously, before we looked at Dominic Szoboszlai, he's someone who can play in that attacking midfield, but then also on the right-hand side. This is a guy who can play attacking midfield and again, also on that left-hand side. So again, it gives you that option. It allows for you to be able to still pick up a player. If you, for example, again, at the time of this video, Liverpool are going to be in the Europa League. But even if we were in the Champions League, to be honest with you, because in the Champions League, you still might face teams that you still want to drop a couple of the players, so you can focus on the Premier League. You can play a player like this. I think he could. I think he can work at that level. To be honest with you, obviously you will never know until you actually see him there. But I feel that he's a player that can, potentially work, in this at that level. So let's kind of wait and see anyway, whether he makes a move or not. I do definitely think he's a player that we should be looking at. Taking a look here, obviously at his heat map for Crystal Palace this season. Again, like I said, mostly on that left-hand side. So I'm looking at him and like a Jones, but also obviously with Liverpool looking likely to sign Alexis Mac Allister, you might think, oh, but why would you sign him, blah, blah, blah. Again, it's all about having these options. It's all about having these options. But I think if you were to sign, for example, if we did sign Alexis Mac Allister, sorry, I said Alexis Sanchez. If you did sign Alexis Mac Allister, and then you were looking at someone like an Eze as well, I think if you did something like that, that's where Curtis Jones then has to start thinking. And obviously therein lies for me is, okay, who do you think is a better profile player? Who do you think is a better player at this stage of their career? Currently, when we're looking at Eze, he's 24 years of age, so he's at that right age. He's had that development. He's played in the Premier League for a couple of years, and he's played consistently in terms of, for Crystal Palace, obviously outside of the major injury that he's obviously had. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, well, he's already at a level higher than a Curtis Jones. So I'm not saying that you have to get someone like an Eze in, but again, it's just an option. It is genuinely just an option, and it's all about the rotation. It's all about having players able to come in to the squad. You might want to play Jones potentially in a different position, or Jones might want to play in a different position. Jones, obviously, we know he can play on that left wing position, or that's his. I felt anyway was his best position coming up through the youth ranks. Eze can also do that role, whereas Mac Allister, obviously, we know he can't play. Like Mac Allister is really, he's a weird one when I look at someone like a Mac Allister, because he kind of floats between defensive mid, central mid, and an attacking mid. But if you're talking about out wide, that's not going to be a position that he's comfortable with. Whereas with Eze, or even with a Curtis Jones, I feel like they're a lot more comfortable. If I had to pick between the two, between Eze and Curtis Jones, I'm going Eze every single day of the damn week. That's not to disrespect Curtis Jones. That's not to say that I think Curtis Jones is a crap player. I just look at it and I think we need to start raising the quality within this squad. Again, this is just an option. This is just someone I think the club should potentially be looking at. So guys, let me know in the comments, first and foremost, what do you think in regards to that? So we look here, obviously, his role at Crystal Palace. So far, Eze has so far been given less freedom at Palace than obviously at QPR. Again, you're in the Premier League now, so the kind of freedom, you're now into a higher level of football. So the football is going to have to be a lot more different, where it's going to be a lot more, probably a bit more structured, should I say, so to speak. He played on the left or as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1 at QPR, where he had obviously that license to roam. But when he was playing under Roy Hodgson, before, I think this was before Hodgson came in this season, playing in that 4-4-2, his role obviously again was a lot more rigid. He had a lot more defensive responsibility. Again, playing for QPR in that league, not even that they were probably even the best team, but they were able to play with a level of fluidity, with a level of flexibility within that kind of league. And there was a period of time when QPR were doing really, really well in the Championship when Eze, was there. But again, you've now gone to Crystal Palace, a team who are at the bottom kind of, who are in the bottom kind of area, in the table. So of course you're going to be under the cosh a lot more. So I expect you to have a lot more defensive, responsibility. He was asked to retain a more consistent position in and out of possession. There's obviously been a less opportunity for him to play as a number 10 for Palace, but given his history out wide, he's obviously quickly able to adapt to the 4-4-2 that Hodgson wanted to play at that time. He's obviously more comfortable on the left than on the right, but he is right-footed and does not stick to his wing. He is best at coming infield and looking to get on the ball in the left half space, where he has more options to progress play. So again, it sounds a lot like when you look at the heat map here, as I said before, you can see it is a bit like that Curtis Jones kind of factor. Now, for me, it's just all about the options. I'm not saying you got to have an abundance of players, having so many players on the books, because then obviously, of course, certain players, if they're not getting game time, they're not going to be able to adapt. It will take some time, etc., etc. But I am still looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't mind him. I really, really wouldn't mind him. Obviously, he prefers to play on the left. That doesn't then mean he can't play on the right. And again, also, when we think about it, Liverpool don't have to we play with this new system and formation now. Does that mean we must play like that all the time? Does that mean Curtis Jones will not get injured? Does that mean Mac Allister is not going to get injured? These are all kind of things. And I think that's one of the key things when I think about Liverpool is that when players do get injured, the drop-off is too big. That's what really, really bugs me, about Liverpool, is that the drop-offs are just too big. You might still want to play the same way, which is fine, when players get injured. But why is the drop-off so huge? Kind of thing. Of course, we've still got Thiago there. I haven't got a clue where Thiago is even going to play in this team. People saying that left attacking mid position, maybe. I think if Thiago was to come back into the squad, Klopp might then revert more to a 4-3-3, to be honest, to be able to utilize Thiago. I don't really see him fitting in that kind of position. So again, having the options to change between, for games, certain games when we're going to come up against a Brighton, for example, we might need to play a different way. Come up against a Man City, you might need to play a different way. Obviously, Europa League, so you're coming up against the stronger teams in the later rounds of the competition. You might just need to play a different way. It shouldn't just be one way. That's it. You got to fit into this. But in today's modern football, that kind of way, just for me, just doesn't really work. And when we're looking at the kind of positions that Eze can play, as you can see here, you can kind of fit anywhere in those attacking midfield positions. Here in the 4-2-3-1 for Palace this season, he's playing as the attacking midfielder. If you look here, they're playing 4-3-3. Again, he was a central midfielder on the right-hand side. So again, he has got that versatility in his game. It's not like he can only play in one position. So again, we can obviously change it up. And this is him in a 4-3-3, again, playing on the left wing. So for you to go from here playing 4-3-3, but in the left wing, to go in 4-3-3 playing central midfield, to then go 4-2-3-1 to then playing as the attacking midfielder, versatility. I love all of that kind of stuff. I love the sheer fact that, he's comfortable, in playing, playing in those kind of roles. And when we take a look here, if I take a look at Dave O.C. Kopp, you guys probably obviously know of him from Twitter. If you guys can see, obviously on the screen, it might be a little bit small for you guys. But when we're taking a look here at the statistics and how he kind of ranks against the other midfielders in the league, you can see here, taking a look at the average possession and stuff like that. Again, he's ahead of players like Kevin De Bruyne, Harvey Elliott, Joe Linton, Martin Odegaard, De Silva, Willock, all Gundogan, all of these kind of things, that he's ahead of some of the better, in my opinion, central midfielders. Quite surprised that Harvey Elliott is actually up there, in the league. Take another look here. Again, Joe Linton, Josh De Silva, Joe Willock, Harvey Elliott, Kevin De Bruyne. This is all different type of statistics. These are all the like offensive statistics when you're taking a look at at these kind of players. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, he's ranking top for a lot of these metrics. And when we look at him in comparison to say, and I always seem to pick this player all the time, but it's because it's a player that was kind of heavily linked with Liverpool. And I think to myself, when I'm asking people, why is it you think that we should be signing Mason Mount, for example? What qualities do you think that this player has over, say, just any other player? I'm always like, okay, cool, let me know. And they tell me this off the ball, we can play this position, that position, blah, blah, blah. And that's the type of player that we feel that we need. Okay, well, this is statistics. So this is Eze on the left-hand side. This is his statistics from this season. On the right-hand side is Mason Mount, but from the season, I believe it was the year they won the Champions League. So not this season, because I didn't want to be unfair, because obviously he's not really played, been out of favour. And I wanted to get his best season for Chelsea, which is obviously the year they won the Champions League. And I wanted to get Eze's best season for Crystal Palace, which is obviously this season. So when we look at this here, off the ball, look, ball recoveries, possession lost, goals inside the box, obviously assists. Mount obviously just picked him in that regards. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, so this is a guy, again, off the ball, because he can play in that central midfield position, because he is comfortable playing in those kind of positions. He's someone who, off the ball, this is exactly what you kind of want to see. Now, looking at this, passes attempted, Mason Mount obviously comes out on top. Again, if we look at it from the team that he's playing in, pass accuracy is not too far off. Through balls attempted, Eze is obviously ahead in that regards. Forward passes, that this was the full season for Mason Mount that year. We still have one more game to go in the Premier League anyway, and already Eze is obviously ahead. So again, looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, fair enough. And this is the one, these kind of statistics here. So duels contested, tackles made, take-on success, ground duels contested, the ground duel success rate. When I look at that for me, because it's in Liverpool's team, that was probably the most important ones that I'm looking at. And when I'm looking at that, Eze's coming out on top by far, to be honest with you, especially in some of them, especially the take-on success, ground duels contested. He's coming out on top of Mason Mount, and we're talking about this is Mason Mount in his best season, for Chelsea. So, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, again. So we look here. This is Eze this season, and Alexis Mac Allister, that obviously Liverpool are looking and hopefully trying to sign. I just wanted to have a little yonder to just see how does he compare to Alexis Mac Allister, who I think is a better player than Eze, 100%. But I don't feel like Eze is that far off, to be honest with you. Ground duels contested, ground duel success rate, interceptions, though, Mac Allister is obviously a far better in that regards. Again, playing for a Brighton team who like to keep the ball and are very good in the transitions. Short passes completed, obviously that was always going to be Alexis Mac Allister. Again, like I said, you're playing for Brighton. The way that they play, I expect that regardless of anything. Duels, take-ons completed. Again, I mentioned about Alexis Mac Allister, the type of player that he is. He's kind of a bit of a floater. So I feel like Eze is someone who is willing and daring to kind of play that riskier football, whereas Mac Allister is probably a lot more safer, but he might be a lot more cuter in the attacking third. And again, here looking at the pass accuracy, again, the pass metrics 100%. Like I said, I feel like Mac Allister, I don't want people to think, like I tried to show from both sides, both the good and bad, and I still think that Mac Allister is a better player. But again, I'm not looking at some of these other than maybe the long ball passing accuracy. What else? Maybe the passes in opponent's half. Again, the way that Brighton play, I expect all of that. I do it, but passing accuracy is 82 to Mac Allister's 87, so it's not far off. Do you get what I mean? But again, Mac Allister is obviously better at doing that than and Eze. And obviously taking a look here, ball recoveries, Mac Allister coming out on top. Possession loss, Mac Allister, as I said, he's a lot more safer with the ball. He's probably a lot more comfortable on the ball. Shot accuracy, relatively the same. Chances created. Again, Mac Allister being that floater, Eze being more of the creative player in the Crystal Palace team. So, looking at that, both against a Mason Mount, who I think overall, potentially, Eze could be a little bit better in for what we need him to do. And then when you look at Mac Allister, it's almost like you can see off the ball in terms of maybe the duels and stuff like that, and your work rate and things like that, I would say maybe Eze is a little bit better. On the ball, though, we're looking at it. Mac Allister's obviously better, like I said. So it just depends on the type of player that you kind of want in your team. Now, they don't really play the same positions, so to speak. Well, ish. Like I said, Mac Allister's positioning at Brighton is a little bit more different than the positioning that Eze is obviously going to, kind of take up. So it Eze, like I said, Eze in terms of a player himself, I do like. I'm not saying that he should be one of our main targets. I'm definitely not saying that. Again, I don't know what the fee would even be for someone like, an Eze in itself. This is him, obviously, when reports linking him potentially with Liverpool. He's just saying, I'm not really too bothered about that. I'm just focusing on the present. I want to continue enjoying and contributing to the team as much as I can. I'm improving every game. And I think he is ready. Now, certain players, when they're at certain levels, they do need to make that kind of jump up to that next level. So Mac Allister, for example, needs to be at the next level, soon. Not to say that Brighton are not a very, very good team. Obviously, they've shown that they're going to be in the Europa League next season and stuff like that. So they are moving into that next level. And again, to be fair, Brighton and Liverpool are going to be in the same position in terms of they're both playing in the Europa League next season. Liverpool, obviously, a bigger club. But I look at Eze and I think to myself, I mean, your next step is to kind of move to a club playing in Europe, to be honest with you. Why can't that be Liverpool? But he is more of the project player. That's what I will say. Hence the reason why, and I just need to make it clear, disclaimer, because I know people are going to go crazy and think, why would you want him? Again, Mac Allister is the player right now, but Eze is a player that I think could potentially hit similar heights to a Mac Allister. If you're looking at an Eze and you're looking at a Curtis Jones, for example, I just use those two because they play in similar positions. Eze is at a higher level than a Curtis Jones. Again, I'm not saying you dump Curtis Jones, but again, it's all about the flexibility. It's all about being able to have these players in and around the squad. Is the quality level in the squad? Is it still remaining high even when certain players are out injured? Even when we're resting certain players in certain games? Even when you want something a little bit different or players are out of form and, all of these kind of various different things. Hence the reason why I look at Eze, I think to myself, decent player, ready for the next step, ready for the next level. If we were still like, obviously we don't know if the season just gone the 22-23 campaign. We don't know if that's just a blip or if Liverpool are going to struggle to make the top 4 next season. Obviously people have got their own varying opinions. Because we don't know for next season and we don't know where we're going to kind of land by the time the last ball is kicked next season. We don't know if we're at a level where, even if you do have a Mac Allister, we're still going to be at the same level where we're still scrapping top 4 kind of thing. So then I'm just like, okay, cool. If that's the case, then players like your Jones and stuff like that, eventually I'm going to be like, you're not really ready to help take us to that next level. I feel like Eze can do that. I feel like I prefer him, as I said, over, a Curtis Jones. But again, that's just a player that I like. It's just a player I think we could potentially have a look at if obviously other targets as well don't come into play, other players that we're obviously going to look into a bit more later on in the in my segment. But I think he's a decent player, man. I feel like people shouldn't sleep on a player like that. And again, we do need to obviously look at that homegrown thing. For some reason, I feel like we're the only club who seem to be worried about it, but it is something that we do need to take a look at. It is something that we do need to not focus on. I don't feel like we need to focus on it, but if you are trying to look at English players out there, I mean, I'd rather him over a Ward-Prowse. I'd rather him over a Mason Mount. I'd rather him over quite a fair few other English players out there. Some obviously that were, some I think are probably on the same level, like a Jacob Ramsey, for example. So it just kind of depends. Like I said, right age, I think he's ready for the next kind of step. Could that step potentially be at Liverpool? Again, we will never really and truly know unless we obviously make that signing. But guys, what do you think about Eze? Do you like the player? Do you think he's a player who could work in Liverpool's team? Again, I'm not saying he comes in as a starter. Does he potentially come in as an option to the squad? Could he even play in this team? Do you not think he's even really good enough? Let me know, man. Let me know. But guys, come to the end, obviously, of the stream. Please make sure you like, share, and obviously subscribe to the channel. Today, we took a little look at Eberechi Eze, the hopefully soon to be England international. doing his thing at Crystal Palace. And yeah, player that I really, really like, and a player I think that's ready for the next step. So let's hope and wait and see. But guys, let me know in the comments, what do you think? I'm G, and I am outie.